Hey, I just want to sit with you for a bit, not to fix anything, not to tell you what to do, just to acknowledge what's actually happening out here. Because I see it. Heck, I feel it. And I know you need to hear that someone else sees it too. If you're watching this and you feel like you're drowning, like you did everything you were supposed to do, and somehow you're still struggling, I get it. And it's not in your head, it's real. What you're feeling, it's all around us, to be fair. I see people in their 20s who went to college, got the degree, did the internships, made the right connections, and they are working jobs that don't pay enough to live alone. They are back home with their parents, or they got multiple roommates in a place that's too small but yet too expensive. And they are wondering, what did they do wrong? But the reality is, they did not do anything wrong. The game changed while they were playing it, or rather, while we all were playing it. You were told that education was the key, that if you just worked hard enough, studied hard enough, stayed out of trouble, you would be okay. You would have a career, a place of your own, maybe even start a family, right? Something that most of us would deep down really want. But sadly, that's not how it's working out for a lot of people, myself included. And it's not because we failed. It's because the world shifted and nobody updated the instructions. I see young couples trying to make it work. They both work full time. I mean, in the past, a single income home was literally the dominant factor, right? But here in 2026, you both better work in order to make it. Otherwise, you're simply not going to eat. And here's the thing after all of that, they're not buying anything crazy, but yet they're still choosing between groceries and gas some weeks, which is insane because from their point of view and from my point of view, we are all doing what we were told is supposed to be the right. And it's not that anybody here is irresponsible. No, this is not slackers, none of that. It's not because nobody is trying hard enough. It's just what it costs to exist right now is insane. And I want you to know that struggling doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. There's this weight people carry, this shame. Like if you are not thriving, it must be your fault. If you're anxious about money, if you're tired all the time, if you can't see a clear path forward, you must have messed up somewhere. But I don't think that is true at all. I think you're dealing with circumstances that are genuinely hard. And acknowledging that doesn't make you weak. It just makes you honest because, I mean, seriously, this is the reality. I see people working jobs they hate because they simply can't afford to quit. People who wanted to create, to build, to contribute in meaningful ways, and instead they are just trying to survive. Clock in, clock out, pretty much as their life. And they are way too exhausted to dream about anything else because at that point, uh, where's the time? Besides the lack of energy, there's simply no time. And they feel guilty for being tired. They feel guilty for not having more ambition. But how can you reach for more when you're using everything you have just to stay afloat? And then there's the mental part of it, the constant low level anxiety that comes with not knowing if you're going to be okay, checking your bank account and feeling your stomach drop, avoiding thinking about the future because it feels too overwhelming. That's not weakness, that's a normal human response to sustained pressure. Your mind is doing exactly what it was sort of meant to do when things are uncertain. It's trying to protect you, believe it or not. It's just that there's no real threat to run from. The actual threat is slow and constant and everywhere. I see people complaining. I see people comparing. And it's like they're feeling like they're failing or that they are falling behind. Everyone else seems to have it together. Everyone else seems to be buying houses, taking trips, getting engaged, moving up in their careers, and you're just trying to make rent. But what you don't see is that a lot of those people are struggling as well. They are just not posting about it. Social media shows you essentially the highlight reel. It doesn't show you the credit card debt, the family money that made things possible, the anxiety that they are hiding. You comparing your full reality to everyone else's curated version, that's never going to be a fair fight. There's also this thing where you feel like you should be grateful. Like, hey, I have a job. If you have a roof over your head, you're not homeless, then, hey, what do you really have the right to complain or compare? But the thing is, struggling is relative. Just because someone has it worse doesn't mean what you're going through isn't hard. You can acknowledge that you're fortunate in some ways. You must do that, really. But still, you can't be honest about the fact that you're hurting in others and that you're hurting deep inside. Those things can both be true. I think about people who are trying to take care of their mental health while also working 40, 50, 60, 80 hours a week. Therapy costs money. Time off costs money. Even just resting costs you money because every hour you are not working is an hour you could have been earning. And that's a trap. Never ending cycle. And you can't heal if you can't rest. But you can't rest if you can't afford to. So what the heck is going on? Ah. And the more you get tired and the more you start to think that maybe this is just how life is these days in 2026. But I don't think it has to be. I don't have answers. I wish I did. I'm not going to pretend that, you know, this is going to be okay. But I do think that after some point, that things can shift for the better. Not because you will suddenly get a big break, or because the economy will fix itself overnight, but because you will find small ways, gradually, bit by bit, to make things work better for you. You will figure out what you can control and you will let go of what you cannot. You will stop measuring yourself against a version of success that doesn't fit your reality. And that might not sound like much, at least right now, but it is something. I see people feeling isolated, like they're the only one who is struggling this much. Everyone around them seems fine, seems capable, seems like they have their life together. So they don't talk about it. They keep it inside. They smile when they need to and fall apart when they are alone. And that loneliness makes everything heavier. But you're not the only one. There are so many people feeling exactly what you are feeling. They are just not saying it out loud either. And I think that's part of why things feel so hard. We are all carrying this privately. We are all pretending we are okay when we are not. And that makes us think the struggle is personal, that it's a failure on our part. When it's not, it's actually systematic, it's cultural. It's the result of a dozen plus different forces that have nothing to do with how hard you're trying or how capable you are. Again, you did not fail. Instead, the system failed you. And I know that doesn't pay your bills. I know that doesn't make it easier to get through the day, but I need you to hear it anyway. Because the story you are telling yourself about why you're struggling matters. And if the story is, I'm not good enough, that's going to break you down. But if the story is, this is genuinely difficult and I'm doing my best, that's something you can live with. I see people trying to stay hopeful and it's hard, like genuinely, because hope feels naive sometimes. Like you're setting yourself up to be disappointed again. But I think hope doesn't have to be about expecting things to get easier or easy. It can just be about believing that you will find a way to keep going. That tomorrow you will wake up and you will try again. And maybe it will be hard again, but you will still be here. And that counts for something. There's a kind of strength in just continuing, in showing up for your life, even when it's not what you wanted it to be, even when it's harder than you thought it would be. You're not giving up and you're not checking out. You are still here, still trying, still looking for a way forward. And I know it doesn't feel like enough, but trust me, it really is. I think about people who had plans, who thought they would be further along by now, who imagined their life looking way differently. And there is grief in that. Grief for the version of your life that did not happen. And that's very real. You are allowed to mourn that, by the way. You are allowed to feel disappointed, but that disappointment doesn't mean your current life is worthless. It just means it's different. And different doesn't always mean worse. Sometimes it just means you're on a path you didn't expect. I see people who are tired of being strong, who've been holding it together for so long, and they just want to break down. And I think that's okay too. You don't have to be strong all the time. You don't have to keep pushing through without acknowledging how much it's costing you. It's okay to say, this is too much. It's okay to say, you are not okay. That doesn't make you weak. Again, we are all just simply human. And I think sometimes we forget that we are allowed to be human. We are allowed to struggle. We are allowed to not have all the answers. We are allowed to be tired and scared and uncertain. Those feelings don't disqualify us from having a good life. They are just part of the process of living. There's this pressure to optimize everything, to be productive, to be improving, to be working towards something bigger. And that's exhausting because sometimes you're not working toward anything. Sometimes you're just trying to make it through the week, and that has to be enough. You can't be in growth mode all the time. Sometimes you're in survival mode, and survival is valid. I see people beating themselves up for not doing more, for not exercising enough, for not eating healthy enough, for not learning new skills, not building their career, not maintaining friendships. And it's like, how are you supposed to do all of that when you are already at your limit? You can't pour from an empty cup. And right now, a lot of people's cups are bone dry. So if all you're doing is getting through the day, that's okay. That's enough. I think we underestimate how much energy it takes just to exist in this world right now. The constant noise, the constant demands, the constant everything. It's relentless. And your body and mind are trying to keep up, but they are tired as well. And that's not a flaw. That's not something you need to fix about yourself. That's just the reality of living in a time and a system that doesn't prioritize rest or balance or well being, to be fair. And I know you're wondering when it's going to get easier. When are you going to catch a break? When things are going to click into place? And I cannot tell you when that will happen. I really don't know. But I can tell you that even if it doesn't happen soon, you are going to keep finding ways to adapt. You are going to keep figuring it out because that's what you've been doing this whole time. You've been adapting, you have been surviving, and that is not something to take lightly. I see people who feel invisible, who are working hard, doing their best, and nobody notices them. Nobody is cheering them on. Nobody is acknowledging how much effort it takes just to keep going. And that lack of recognition sometimes wears you down. Let's be real. Because you start to wonder if any of it matters, if anyone even notices, like if one day you just stop trying. But it doesn't matter. Even if nobody is watching you, even if nobody is applauding, what you are doing matters. You are showing up for yourself. You are taking care of your responsibilities. You are being there for people who depend on you. And even on the days when it feels pointless, you are still doing it. That's integrity. That's character. And it doesn't need external validation to be real. I think about the people who are lonely, who don't have someone to talk to about what they are going through, who feel like they cannot burden their friends or family with their problems. So they just carry it and it gets heavier. And they start to feel like maybe they are supposed to be able to handle this on their own. But humans are not built to do life alone. We need each other. And if you don't have that right now, I am sorry. And I know it must be really hard. But it doesn't mean you are unworthy of connection. It just means you have not found your people as yet. And maybe that sounds empty. Maybe it sounds like an empty promise. But I've seen people go years feeling completely alone and then suddenly find someone who gets it. And the reality is we really just need that one someone. Our space, our circle, it doesn't need to be huge. It doesn't need to be an entourage. One person is all that we need. And it changes everything. Not because the circumstances change, but because they are not carrying it alone anymore. So if you are lonely right now, I just want you to know that is not permanent. It feels permanent, I know, but it is not. There's also this thing where you feel like you're supposed to have it all figured out by now, like everyone else knows what they are doing, and you're the only one who is still lost. But that's not true. Most people are just pretending. They are making it up as they go, same as you. And the ones who seem the most confident are often the ones who are the most afraid of being found out. So if you feel like a fraud, like you don't know what you're doing, welcome to the real world. None of us really know. And we're all just trying our best, day in and day out. I see people who are scared of the future, who can't imagine how they are going to afford a family or retirement or even just next year. And that fear is paralyzing because you're trying to plan for a future that feels impossible. And I don't have a solution for that. I wish I did. But I think maybe the answer isn't to figure out the whole future right now. Maybe it's just to focus on what's right in front of you. Get through the day, get through this week, and trust that future you will figure out future problems when you get there because you've made it this far. And there were probably times when you didn't think you would. Let's be honest. Times where it felt impossible, but you're still here. And that means something. It means you are stronger than you think. It means you are more resilient than you give yourself credit for. And it means that even when things get hard again, and based on how life is, they likely will, you will find a way through because you always have. I think one of the hardest parts is guilt. The guilt of not being happy when you quote unquote should be. The guilt of struggling when you have things others don't. The guilt of not being further along. But guilt doesn't serve you. It just makes you feel worse about something that's already hard. And you don't deserve that. You are allowed to struggle without feeling bad about struggling. There's also the exhaustion of faking it, of pretending you're fine when you're not, of putting on a face for work, for family, for friends. And then when you're finally alone, you drop the mask and just, well, all that tiredness, it just hits you. And that gap between who you are in public and who you are in private, that is exhausting. It takes so much energy to pretend. And I think sometimes it's okay to stop pretending, at least with yourself, at least in private. You don't have to perform all the time. I see people who are angry, who did everything right and still got screwed over. And that anger is valid. You are allowed to be mad. You are allowed to feel like this isn't fair. Because it's not. It's really not. And I think sometimes we suppress that anger to try to be positive, to focus on gratitude. But anger is just grief with shoes on. It's the same feeling, and you're allowed to feel it. But I also think that anger can't be where you live because it will eat you alive. So feel it, acknowledge it, let yourself be pissed off about how hard this is. But then when you are ready, try to let some of it go. Not because you're okay with how things are, but because carrying that weight is not helping you. It's just making you heavier. I also think about people who are working multiple jobs just to survive, who barely see their families, who don't have time for hobbies or rest or anything that makes life feel worth living. And that is not a life. That is just an existence. And I hear that so many people are stuck in that because you deserve more than just survival. You deserve joy, you deserve rest, you deserve to feel like your life is yours. And I know that's not always possible right now. I know that sometimes survival is all you can manage, but I hope you're holding on to the idea that it will not always be this way, that there will be seasons where you can breathe a little easier, where you can actually live instead of just endure. And maybe that season is not now, but it will come. I see people who are trying to be there for others, while falling apart themselves, who are supporting friends, taking care of family, showing up for people even when they can barely show up for themselves. And that's beautiful, but it's also unsustainable. You can't give what you don't have. If you are running on empty, eventually you are going to burn out. So it's okay to pull back. It's okay to say you don't have the capacity right now. Taking care of yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. And I think we've been taught that helping is, or rather, needing help is some form of weakness. That asking for support means you have failed somehow. But that is far from the truth. Needing help is human. We all need help sometimes. And if you are in a place where you need more than you can ask for, I'm genuinely sorry because I know that it's going to be lonely. But it doesn't make you a burden, it doesn't make you too much. It just means you are going through something hard. That there's this idea that if you are struggling, you should just work harder, hustle more, grind it out. But sometimes working harder isn't the answer. Sometimes you are already working as hard as you can, and it's still not enough. And that is not your fault. That's not a personal feeling. That's a system that demands more than it gives back. I see people who are numb, who've been in survival mode so long that they don't even feel much anymore. They are just going through the motions, and that numbness feels safer than actually feeling everything. Because if you let yourself feel it, it might be too much. But I think that numbness comes at a cost because when you shut down the hard feelings, you shut down the good ones as well. And then life becomes flat, gray, and that's its own kind of suffering. So maybe when you are ready, you start letting yourself feel again, little by little, not all at once, just small moments where you let the feelings in. And yeah, some of them are going to hurt, but some of them might surprise you. There might still be moments of beauty, of connection, of something that reminds you why you are still trying. I think about people who feel stuck, like they can't move forward and they can't go back. They're just frozen in this in between space, and that's terrifying because at least when you are moving, even if it's in the wrong direction, you feel like you are doing something. But when you are stuck, you feel powerless. And I get that. But being stuck is not permanent either. Something will shift eventually. It always does. And when it does, you will be ready to move forward again. And until then, it's okay to just be where you are. You don't need to force progress. You don't have to pretend you're further along than you are. You can just exist in the stuck place and trust that it's temporary, even if it doesn't feel like it. I see people who are second guessing everything, every decision they've made, every path they've chosen, wondering if things would be different if they had done it like differently or done something else. And that kind of thinking will drive you crazy because you can't know. You can't go back and you cannot try the other option. All you have is the path that you are on. And maybe it's not the one that you wanted, but it's the one that you have got. And you can still make something out of it. Regret is heavy and it doesn't change anything. So if you are carrying regret, I hope you can find a way to put some of it down. Not because your choices were perfect, but because you made them with the information you had at the time. And that's all anyone can really do.